What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote right there. And maybe you can have me entertaining you at your next event. Let me entertain you. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Let's learn some stuff right here on the program. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, February 6th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Trump acquitted in Senate impeachment trial. The Republican-controlled Senate on Wednesday acquitted President Trump on charges that he abused his power and obstructed Congress. The vote on the abuse of power allegation was 48 to 52, essentially along party lines. Senator Mitt Romney, Republican of Utah, was the only Republican to join Democrats in voting guilty. The House approved impeachment articles accused Trump of improperly withholding security aid to pressure Ukraine into investigating Democrats. The White House called the result of the impeachment trial a, quote, full vindication, end quote. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican Kentucky, said Democrats' case came, quote, nowhere near justifying the first presidential removal in history, end quote. Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, called the trial a, quote, sham, end quote, and said Republicans, quote, placed a giant asterisk, end quote, next to Trump's acquittal by refusing to call witnesses. This is according to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Number 2, Buttigieg, Sanders nearly tied as more Iowa results come in. The Iowa Democratic Party released more caucus results late Wednesday, with former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg holding on to a narrow lead with 26.2% of the delegates as Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont, pulled into a near tie with 26.1%, with 97% of the precincts reporting. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat Massachusetts, was in third with 18.2%, followed by former Vice President Joe Biden with 15.8%, and Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat Minnesota, with 12.2%. Biden, who had been near the top in polls before Monday's caucuses launched the 2020 primary season, acknowledged that the result was a setback for his campaign. Quote, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, end quote, he said. Quote, we took a gut punch in Iowa, end quote. This is according to the Des Moines Register and the New York Times. Number 3, coronavirus toll continues to rise rapidly in China. The death toll from China's coronavirus outbreak surged again on Thursday, rising by 73 to a total of 563 people. It was the third straight record one-day increase. There have been 2 deaths outside mainland China, one in the Philippines and the other in Hong Kong. Another 10 cases were confirmed on a quarantine cruise ship in the Japanese port of Yokohama, bringing the total cases on board to 20. Experts are intensifying a push to develop a vaccine for the flu-like virus. Drug makers warned they still had a long way to go before finding an effective treatment, although a report of a possible, quote, breakthrough, end quote, lifted financial markets that have been struggling against fears of an economic backlash from the outbreak. This is according to Reuters. Number 4, Romney becomes first senator to vote to oust president from same party. Senator Mitt Romney, Republican Utah, on Wednesday became the first American senator ever to vote for removing from office a president belonging to his own party. Romney, the 2012 Republican presidential nominee, said in an interview early Wednesday that Trump was, quote, guilty of an appalling abuse of the public trust, end quote. The New York Times reported. Romney said Trump's push for Ukraine to investigate Vice President Joe Biden, a candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination, was clearly political. Quote, attempting to corrupt an election to maintain power is about as egregious an assault on the Constitution as can be made, end quote, Romney said. Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., tweeted that Romney is, quote, forever bitter, end quote, about losing his presidential bid and should be, quote, expelled, end quote, from the GOP. This is according to the New York Times. Number 5, Trump State of the Union TV ratings tumble. About 37.2 million people watched President Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday, the smallest live TV audience for a presidential address to Congress since former President Barack Obama's final State of the Union in 2016. Nielsen said on Wednesday. Trump attracted his biggest TV audience for his address in 2017 when 47.7 million tuned in. He had 45.6 million viewers in 2018 and 46.8 million viewers in 2019. Fox News had the biggest audience by far this year with 11.5 million viewers, slightly more than last year. MSNBC, which is popular with liberals, dropped to last place among major channels in a sign that many Trump critics declined to watch. This is according to Axios and the New York Times. Number 6, Trump administration suspends trusted traveler programs for New Yorkers. The Trump administration will stop letting New York residents enroll in Global Entry and other trusted traveler programs in response to the, quote, sanctuary city, end quote, policies. Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf said on Fox News late Wednesday. Wolf told host Tucker Carlson that he had sent a letter to the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles saying that the State Driver's License Access and Privacy Act, known as the Green Light Law, has made it impossible for Homeland Security officials to properly vet applicants for the programs. The change appears to be the Trump administration's latest effort to retaliate against cities and other jurisdictions that have enacted, quote, sanctuary, end quote, policies cooperating with immigration officials. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 7, Tesla shares plummet after stunning rally. Tesla shares dropped by 17% on Wednesday as analysts warned the stock was priced too high after a recent rally, and senior executives said the coronavirus outbreak in China would delay deliveries of its Model 3 electric cars from its Shanghai plant. Tesla remained up by 25% since it reported its second straight quarterly profit a week ago. Needham analyst Rajvinda Gill recommended selling Tesla, saying in a report that its price-to-earnings multiples had risen too high. Even after Wednesday's decline, Tesla's price-to-earnings ratio is higher than Amazon's and more than double that of Apple. Quote, we've never seen a stock rise that much, that fast, with such little regard to past fundamentals or track record, end quote. Gill wrote. This is according to Reuters. Number 8. 3 killed when airliner slides off runway in Turkey. A Pegasus Airlines passenger plane slid off a runway and broke apart at Istanbul's Sabiha Gökçen Airport, killing 3 people, Turkey's health minister Fahrettin Koca said Wednesday. Another 179 people were sent to hospitals. The plane, attempting to land in bad weather, reportedly went into a skid and fell about 100 feet over an empty road into a field. Quote, according to the information we obtained, the plane drifted to the land as a result of the hard landing, end quote. Coca told the Anadolu news agency. Photos from the crash sites show the low-cost carrier's Boeing 737-800 split into three pieces. The Associated Press reported that passengers, quote, had evacuated through cracks in the smashed plane, end quote. This is according to NPR and CNN. Number 9. Ailing Bernie Madoff requests early release from prison. Bernie Madoff, jailed for the largest Ponzi scheme in history, requested early release in a Wednesday court filing, telling the court he was dying of terminal kidney failure. The document said Madoff has less than 18 months to live. Quote, Madoff does not dispute the severity of his crimes, nor does he seek to minimize the suffering of his victims, end quote. His lawyer Brandon Sample wrote, quote, Madoff humbly asked this court for a modicum of compassion, end quote. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison in 2009 after being convicted of cheating thousands of investors out of $13 billion. Quote, in light of the nature and circumstances of his offense, his release at this time would minimize the severity of his offense, end quote. Ken Heil, Bureau of Prisons General Counsel, wrote in denying an earlier release request in December. This is according to the New York Times and the Associated Press. Number 10. Kirk Douglas dies at 103. Actor Kirk Douglas, a star of Hollywood's golden age, died Wednesday at his home in Beverly Hills. He was 103 years old. Douglas starred in more than 80 movies, including Spartacus and Gunfight at the OK Corral, before retiring from film in 2004. He was nominated for the Best Actor Academy Award 3 times and received an honorary Oscar in 1996. He played a boxer in 1949's Champion, the movie that propelled him into stardom, and in 1955 created his own film company, Bryna Productions. In a message posted online Wednesday afternoon, son Michael Douglas wrote, quote, to the world he was a legend, an actor from the golden age of movies who lived well into his golden years, a humanitarian whose commitment to justice and the causes he believed in set a standard for all of us to aspire to, end quote. This is according to The Hollywood Reporter. That's 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, February 6th, 2020. Thank you for listening to What Makes You Smarter. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Smarter. This is Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.